Mic check. Alright, so this is GTA Crypto. This is Theo Beams here. Just talking about what the modular future is going to look like. Now, I'm just here live chatting with some Discord member about how things are going to play out in the next year or so. And while we're looking at the prices, say, you know what, Mimi, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm seeing as well. But we're talking Cosmos. What is Cosmos, IBC, modular blockchains? That whole discussion is very hot right now. So we're gonna kind of dive into that topic and get into it. So me and Mimi were just talking about Berachain, and I can't pull that on the screen because it's not up. It's not out yet. But I'll pull up the price of like TIA here while I discuss. You know what? I'll go here. And yeah, so what I was saying earlier was like I got into Cosmos back in 2020 when it was just $2.50. It wasn't a very big chain, but it had a certain amount of properties that I thought were very interesting and thought would definitely proliferate a lot of new blockchains in the future. And at the time that I was seeing it, I had already seen some chains existing. For example, Binance Smart Chain. Sorry, not Binance Smart Chain, just Binance Chain. The first BNB token actually started off as a Cosmos chain. When I first found that out, I was like, holy shit, Binance BNB is like worth billions of dollars. It was the biggest Cosmos chain at the time, and it was kind of clear to see all of the other chains below it were highly undervalued because they were like sitting at fractions of the market cap that Binance chain was at. So I figured, if I'm already looking at like five chains here built from this Cosmos SDK, what could come in the future. And this was back in 2020. So IBC I started learning about and started realizing like IBC is going to be able to allow you to send tokens back and forth. Not only send tokens though, the dream in the future was to allow you to send messages and allow you to allow smart contracts to send tokens and messages between each other autonomously without a lot of work, So IBC definitely changed the game. You saw chains like Osmosis pop up, where for staking Atom, you got a huge bag of Osmosis, and that Osmo was IBC enabled, allowing you to transfer tokens in between chains through itself, through the Osmo chain. And it was sick. I mean, we were there from the beginning and saw quite a lot of growth. 4 years later now, skip ahead. A lot of bullshit that happened in between. You saw Terra completely rock the market and then completely destroy the market in about a year and a half. That was quite incredible, and since then, a lot of teams and a lot of projects have been built using the Cosmos ecosystem. Um, I always knew that this would come back, but to see it come back in the way that it has is quite astonishing. So, to get a little bit into that, let's talk about. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to talk about TIA, Dymension, and soon to come Berachain. I think these three chains are extremely innovative and are going to change the game for years to come. The same way that Cosmos has for these three chains to even exist. First of all, they're all built using the Cosmos SDK. They're all obviously IBC enabled, which is an inherent property of Cosmos chains. But where do they differ? What do they bring new to the table? So Mimi, where should I start? Should I start with Tia? I think I'm gonna start with Celestia because it's kind of like the first one, and I'm not gonna go too deep. I'm just gonna kind of like explain like why they're different and what they're doing to proliferate new chains. So what Celestia does is kind of bring forth a new paradigm. They kind of flip the concept of a blockchain on its head. Maybe not like upside down, but it like chopped it up into pieces. So let's backtrack a little bit to look at like Ethereum and like rollups. If you know what like a rollup is, real quick, it's basically just using the security of Ethereum, or like a L2 is using the security of Ethereum and allowing you to do execution, which is like just the calculation of transactions and the actual logic. So all the smart contracts, all of the execution lives on the rollup or the L2, and the security. So all of the consensus, the finality, all of your blocks are being written down to the ETH blockchain in order to be like a final transaction. Like this can no longer be changed or removed, right? So the security of these chains typically go from the rollup down to the ETH chain. What Celestia does is it allows you to, instead of using Ethereum for the the finality and like setting your final blocks to the ETH chain, Celestia kind of created a chain to allow you to do the same thing, right? So it allows you to post your final blocks onto the Celestia chain, but with this purpose in mind, it's making it a lot cheaper and a lot easier for you to do that, with a lot more security. So again, I don't want to go too deep into the details of technicals because I'm not really the one to explain that. There's all of these guys are out here to explain that stuff, but I'm just trying to give you guys like an overall view of like what is happening here. So now you have like this framework where rollups can more cheaply post their finality data onto a chain that they can trust, which used to be Ethereum, which is extremely expensive, by the way. To run, Arbitrum, or to run Optimism, it was there was a new update recently, the Denkun update, but it's still very expensive. Like you could be talking tens of thousands of dollars, even in the hundreds, to run an entire layer two that post blocks on Ethereum. Celestia will bring that cost down to a fraction. So this will now, because of that cost reduction, you now will see a lot of new rollups pop up that won't use ETH as their settlement layer. I shouldn't say settlement, it's actually the data availability layer, but that's me getting into the technicals and I don't want to get into the weeds. But you're pretty much using Celestia for your security, which is cheaper and easier than Ethereum. So that's a catalyst for more chains to pop up doing this. One of the reasons why people really like this is because when you see a proliferation of chains, you will see a proliferation of airdrops. So that's one of the reasons why you want to buy and stake these things, for the same reason that people bought and staked Atom way back in the day. So to go on to, I think Tia, yeah, Tia basically is just allowing a lot of layer twos and rollups be created easier, and there are other implications where you might be able to see dApps and applications or smart contracts use Celestia to operate. It's starting to create like this weird ability that you can create applications now that don't really even need a chain itself. You kind of use Celestia as like the chain, and then you can just create an application on Celestia. It can be a bridge application, or or a roll up itself, which would be like another blockchain. But you can create applications just using Celestia data availability. Like it's gonna be very very interesting, guys. So all of these applications and blockchains that'll pop up on top of Celestia airdrops. That that's all of these are going to lead to airdrops. So like let me just preface this conversation, right? So that was Tia. Let's move on to Dymension. Um, by the way, I guess I'll wait till the end for questions, but like I'll try to speed it up a bit. So Dymension is project. I probably need to research a little bit more to understand their technology. Um, I'm actually kind of curious how Dymension might relate to Celestia. Um, I don't know if they are using. Yeah, I'm not sure if Dymension is using Celestia for like their services, like data availability and stuff. But what Dymension is doing is pretty much creating a framework for roll-ups again to exist, but more specifically for roll-ups. So what Dymension is kind of doing is instead of just being like a data availability layer, they're focusing on also being like a liquidity hub, and they're focusing on building a framework for roll-ups to just be created a lot easier. So Celestia doesn't really do that. It's not really focused on allowing roll-ups to be created, um, but Dymension is. Dymension is kind of creating like a software development kit, pretty much like a SDK probably, to create what they call roll apps. And all of these roll apps will be able to speak with each other. They'll be able to pull liquidity from Dymension itself, and they'll have um, pretty much it's like a little hub for a bunch of role apps to speak with each other and work with each other. You can look at Dymension as if it's like a Ethereum chain with its own roll ups and stuff like that around it, hovering around it. Um, but again, with this in mind from the ground up, so that it's all a much smoother and easier user development experience. And I'm telling you guys, when retail comes and hits some of these products, it's going to be a much better time than they've previously had with like Ethereum, Solana, bridging stuff between the two. You're going to see entire ecosystems around this that will play a lot nicer with each other. So yeah, so Dimension is going to be kind of like it's kind of like Tia, but it's taking that to another step where it's saying, hey, like you can use us to post your blocks and stuff. I think again I got to do a little bit more research on them, but ultimately they're creating a much rich fertile land for roll ups to be created on top of it. Um, yeah, so Dimension's interesting, but again, there is so much more coming in the future that even pale in comparison to what I think Dimension's creating. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. The reason why I'm so excited though is for this third one, and that's Berachain. So I should have been on the Dimension price while I was talking about Dimension, but I'll just put Dimension up while I'm talking about Berachain. So Berachain is actually extremely interesting, um, and I'm actually gonna go a little bit more into the details about this because there's more to it. So where Celestia changed like a paradigm, Dimension built on that paradigm. I think Berachain also created a new paradigm. So you're now not seeing chains pop up with only one asset as their main staking asset. Where Mimi, you have Say, and you know that when you go to stake Say is the only option to stake, right?
Yep.
But with other chains, sorry, with these new chains that are based on Berachain's consensus, which they call proof of liquidity, instead of just using their native token, they're actually allowing you to use any token that exists in like the crypto ecosystem that is whitelisted. So that might start off with Bitcoin, Ethereum, you know, maybe Solana, probably Bitcoin and Ethereum right off the gate, and they'll start adding in other ones in the future. But you're basically looking at a framework now that allows you to stake. From my understanding, and again, this I am not the 100% tech guy. I really do need to do more research, but I do plan to do that and come back to you guys with like updates. But from my understanding, I believe these should be native Bitcoin assets. Like if I'm staking Bitcoin on Berachain, it should be like in a Bitcoin wallet. It's not like wrapped Bitcoin on Berachain or something like that. Like we're talking like raw native assets, you know? So proof of liquidity is more so like you're putting up your assets on chain A, chain B, chain C, chain D, and staking it on Berachain. That's very interesting because what that tells you is that there's probably going to be more functionality, smart contracts, some interoperability that comes with that ability to be able to stake Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all these other chain assets. So, very interesting stuff. Definitely going to be a significant player in the future. And I don't say that for no reason. I do say this because you have proof of liquidity. So having like a novel consensus mechanism is not common. So when you do see it pop up, there are chances where you'll see like people adopt it and use it for their own chain. So proof of liquidity is actually being adopted by a chain called Initia. So Initia is actually extremely interesting because they're doing the same thing. They're allowing uh, stakers or validators to stake not only their native token but also Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, whatever else the hell, right? And they're taking it a step further, kind of like Dymension is, and they're focusing on not only staking that liquidity, but making that liquidity available to rollups. So, Initia, you know, I'm actually, as I'm talking about this is why I like making these videos, because as I'm talking about this, I start connecting dots myself. Initia is actually very similar to Dymension in the sense that they're making a framework for, again, rollups to exist on top of it, and they're going to be using like liquidity from the hub of Initia itself. But where the difference is that Initia is built using Berachain's proof of liquidity. All of this is very bullish. When you start to see projects pop up that are being used to build other projects, or like when an entire blockchain creates a novel technology and you see other builders excited about that, that's like a signal to be like, okay, like something's happening here that most people do not see, because usually you're just seeing copy pasta, right? You want to be at the person that's being copied, right? So Bearchain is definitely getting replicated in other chains, but it doesn't stop there. Berachain not only created their own consensus mechanism, they also created their own EVM, which is a Ethereum virtual machine. So the Ethereum virtual machine is very extremely popular. Monad, another very hyped blockchain, is improving the EVM to be faster and parallelized like Solana is. You have, you know, other VMs that are not the EVM. You know, EVM, you could just think of like all the layer twos like Polygon, Solana, sorry, Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, you know, those are like Blast. Even those are all popular EVM layer twos. But you might have Sui, Aptos, Movement, um, you know, Solana. Solana is a different virtual machine, so they have a different way to create smart contracts. Creating a virtual machine is not easy. So most blockchains that like pop up, like they'll use like a virtual machine that other people already use. So the EVM is a very popular one. The Solana VM, the SVM is not as popular because it's harder to build on. Move VM is actually very popular. I think it's getting there, it's growing. People like it. People seem to like it a lot. But the EVM reigns supreme. Cosmos has their own as well. But what Cosmos was lacking for a very long time was their own proper EVM that could exist on a Cosmos chain. Because Cosmos is built very differently. So it was never built with EVM in mind in the beginning. So people are starting to adapt it now. Last cycle, you had Evmos. Actually, you know what? As I talk about this, I could put up Evmos. So Evmos, this will be fun to look at. And you can see how Evmos, how the value of EVM on Cosmos can grow. Oops, what am I doing here? Day. So the value of Evmos when it first came out was about $3 a token, and the staking rate was insane. Like you were making like, you know, 1% a day because the staking rate was like 300%. You know, it was insane. So Evmos was like $3 when it first came out, and it had a massive dump because first of all they had a hack. The bridge providers that they were using had a hack, and again, this is actually why all of this liquidity hub stuff, like the like Dymension and Initia, having like liquidity that these apps can just pull from, it's very bullish because like yeah, like Dymension, sorry, Evmos had a bridge hack. All of the liquidity that was on Evmos got pulled, and this is a side story to be honest with you, but like that's why you're seeing this massive dump. Like this is how much did it lose? Like $2 to basically it lost 88% in basically like a couple weeks. That was October to 2 months, October to December. It lost 88%. It was like crazy. I don't even remember that happening. I must have blocked it out of my brain. But sorry about that. But long story short, Evmos was the thing. That was the EVM chain on Ethereum. But they did a terrible job. The execution wasn't great. They had a ton of bugs when they first launched, and to this day, they still haven't bounced back from their DeFi nightmare of the bridge hack. I don't think stablecoins ever returned to that chain. So it is on the rebound though, but still, people don't care about this project. Berachain created their own novel EVM compatible smart contracts. Sorry, their own virtual machine, and that's a big deal. So not only was proof of liquidity massive for the entire blockchain space, which or will to come, you will see, but having the EVM on Cosmos finally is another dream come true. So that's my spiel. I'm not gonna make this run forever, but definitely wanted to make this video so that people could see kind of like what's going on in the ecosystem. And you know what? If I'm to end,
Buenos dias, buenos dias.
actually, oops. If I'm gonna just ruin my video there. No, if I'm gonna end you guys off, I think I should show you a little bit of the modular chains that are popping up. I've been making a list on Twitter, so I'll give you guys a bit of a look at what I have so far. It's not gonna be a big list, but I have been adding to it the newer projects. So this is the stuff that I have not talked about, where that's being built because of the three things that I mentioned. My list. Okay, well that's. Oh, there it is. All right, so I got 8 things here. So I will change my screen for you so you can see that. And I'll click on the members. So yeah, you're looking at projects like NIM, the first airdrop confirmed to Dymension stakers. Definitely a project to look out for is AI gaming. Mitosis, being built using some Celestia technology, as well as another project I haven't talked about, but that's for the group to know and not for you guys to find out later. But mitosis is extremely interesting. It's a liquidity protocol for modular blockchains. Astria is for sequencing. That's more of like a roll-up technology play. So interesting stuff. Radius, I actually don't know about Radius. Empowering roll-ups beyond decentralization. Build connect. I gotta take a look at Radius. I don't know much about it. Definitely looks roll-up tech though. Particle network. This one's interesting. This is one of the ones that are actually using Berachain EVM, the new Polaris EVM implementations, excuse me, by Berachain. Modular L1 powering chain abstraction. So chain abstraction is kind of like you don't want to know which chain you're on, especially like what version of wrap tokens you have. This seems like it'll probably be a good place to like bridge tokens from A to B, just to get token from point A to point B and not have to worry about bridging and stuff like that. This is going to be interesting. So chain abstraction is very great. And espresso, again, another one I'm not really that familiar with, but it's definitely roll up tech. The lead developers of espresso supporting layer 2 roll-ups with scale. Yeah, so espresso is. Do I have it written down in my thing? No. Yeah, so that's another one I want to look into. But all of this stuff listed there, very decent likelihood that Tia, Dime, and eventually like Berachain stakers will be eligible for in the future. So yeah, that's the video. I'm gonna wrap it up here. If anyone has questions or you wanna like hit us up, this is GTA Crypto. You can find us on Twitter, on Discord, in the description or in the About Us of the YouTube. And yeah, thanks for listening. It's been a long one, but yeah, peace.